Again, this is News Today. And our first story, the Appointments Committee of Parliament has started vetting Dr. Akosua Gabra as the Minister-designate for Trades and Industry. He was Ghana's Minister of Communication from July 1997 to December 1998. He became Minister of Education from December 1998 to January 2001 and was concurrently Minister responsible for Mines and Energy from October to December 1999 under the government of President Jerry John Rawlings. Earlier, he served as Ghana's ambassador to the United States and Mexico from June 1994 to 1997. Let's get an update on this man at his vetting, of which you see a live feed on your screen at the moment. Kwabena Chenchen Henep Boateng is a reporter on the ground. He's joined us for a quick update. Hello, Kwabena.
Hello, Kevin.
Kwabena, what have we been missing?
Well, so far, Dr. Akosua Gabra has been answering some questions being posed by members of the Parliamentary Select Committee. And is actually, there's a funny comment that just passed by. But anyway, he's been responding to certain questions being posed by the committee. Notable amongst them, let me just highlight this particular one, was the issue of his age. He did mention that he was born in 1953, and the subsequent question was posed that when the deductions were made, the presupposes that he was 3 years while he was in class 1. He raised a bit of an issue, and his answer was that he's not too sure. He can't really recollect whether he was exactly 3 years at the time he was in class 1, primary 1, or he was 4 years or 3.5. He wasn't too sure about that, so he raised a bit of an issue, and where questions to and fro. But that aside, also, he's been responding to another pressing issue with regards to comments he's purported to have said, as he has purported to have made with regards to former President John Evans Atamel's fielding Team B players in his cabinet and in his, as ministers, while they were Team A players in the NDC. He's actually, in his words, what he said was that he never made those statements. What he said was that he was misquoted and he was bastardized for that. All he said was he wrote an article sharing what Ghanaians, many Ghanaians were saying on the various radio stations and TV stations, that there were better candidates, there were better people who could fill in the slots in the various ministerial portfolios in the country, which he himself was a member of. So basically, he's been speaking to some of these issues and a few more, including his position as the CEO of Action Chapel International and president of the Dominion University College, which is also a subsidiary of the Action Chapel group. Basically, he's been answering some of these questions. We are still here. The vetting is still ongoing. You could see lots of people here throwing their weight behind him. Some chiefs from all... I was really surprised when I came into contact with some chiefs who said they were here to support him. Some chiefs from Ghana, Accra, some from the northern region. So many people, diverse people, all here, just here to throw their weight behind the former Minister of Education and Communication.
I think I'm going to have you host the line. Let's have a feel of the vetting process, and then we'll come back to you.
Begin this African Development Bank consultancy last September. Thank you.
Okay. Then, beneath Dominion University, you were CEO of CTO, and you've indicated how we were appointed. Did the government of Ghana then have any hand in your appointment?
The members of the CTO, which includes the government of Ghana, have to endorse the appointment of the CEO of that organization after the interview process that has been described in the CV. So yes, when I had been interviewed and been selected, all member countries were notified. The government of Ghana was also notified. And if any member country had an objection, then they could have objected. So to the extent that the government of Ghana supported my appointment, yes, the government of Ghana, as a shareholder in the CTO, had a hand in the appointment after it had been already undertaken by the executive committee of the organization. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If the government of your home country had not endorsed, would it have made any difference?
If it was the only country that objected to it, it would not have made any difference, because it's a majority rule type of situation. But I think it would have been quite awkward if your own country, for whatever reason, will not allow you to serve the international community, including your own country itself. Because when you get into these international civil service positions, you are serving the global community, including your own country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, on page 2, he was Chief Executive Officer of Spio Gabra and Associates, 2001 to 2003. And I want to know whether Spio Gabra and Associates existed before January 2001.
Not at all, it did not, Mr. Chairman.
And then on page 3, we were ambassador to the United States of America and Mexico. And you indicate that you were the youngest ever Ghanaian ambassador to the United States. Before you, who was the youngest? Because you seem to know all the ages of your predecessors. Who was the youngest before you?
Mr. Chairman, I wish I could give you the ages of my predecessors. I don't have that information, but I was told by foreign service officers at the time I was appointed that in general, that position tends to be, if you like to use the word, a terminal stage for foreign service officer, or in fact, even a political appointee. That my predecessor was Dr. Joseph Abe, JLS Abe, who was certainly, I believe, even at the time past 55 or 60. And before that was Ambassador Eric Otu, who actually had retired, I think, before he became ambassador, etc. But I think this fact can be checked if it's deemed to be in error. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just now that we are through with the CV, just want to ask a small, just to apply himself to a small matter. The last page, page 9, February 2002 to August 2003. That's 3 bullet points before the biodata. Under E, he said between that period, you were the secretary to Enyan Ebasa constituency in the central region of Ghana. Is there any constituency called Enyan Ebasa constituency?
I stand to be corrected, Mr. Chairman. This is the August House who will know the names of the constituencies better than I. But I believe that was the name at the time. I believe there have been changes since that time. But to the best of my knowledge, that was how the constituency was called at that time.
Mr. Chairman, but I've avoidance of doubt. There has not been any constituency in this country since independence called Enyan Ebasa constituency.
Chairman, I stand to be corrected. I'm in the house of the August House.
I think that is the right approach. The correction will be effective. Enyan Ebasa is a paramountcy. It's a small area, but it's a paramountcy in that area. You know, so it doesn't constitute a constituency. Ejumaku Enyan Esiam constituency. That is the description. Ejumaku Enyan Esiam. But Enyan Ebasa falls within that constituency. Okay.
Were you a constituency secretary, a police station secretary, or a branch secretary or war secretary? What were you?
Constituency.
Order.
So the records will show that you were the constituency secretary of that constituency.
Yes, honorable members, I think that.
Kobna Chen is still over the telephone. Let's get a quick word from Kobna. Kobna? From what we see on TV, it looks as though his CV is, the committee is going through his CV.
Exactly. So far, they've been focusing on the CV. That's the first part of the vetting process. After the CV, they'll be delving into other aspects of Dr. Ekospi-Ugabra. But for now, the focus is on the CV, and it's been going on for just about an hour. So.
We look forward to that. Thank you very much, Kobna. Kobna Boateng Chen joined us from Parliament, where Dr. Ekospi-Ugabra is being vetted as Trades and Industry Minister designate. Let's turn attention to education, and education is Anis Hafa says education at the tertiary level must not come to a total halt as a result of the Ebola scare. The Education Ministry has directed heads of all tertiary institutions across the country to delay reopening reopening dates for the 2014-2015 academic year by 2 weeks as the Interministerial Task Force makes arrangements for the necessary screening and mechanisms and health readiness process ahead of reopening. Speaking to Joy News early on, Anis Hafa recommended that online lectures be used as a measure to deal with loss of academic time during this delay.
It is key in everything that we do now. Kids at home, the students at home, what are they supposed to do? That is why I keep saying that every course that is being taught in any of our public universities should have a website. On the website, we're going to plant 1, the course content, 2, all the links to the various topics that will be discussed in the course content, and then the lectures themselves have also to be posted there. So that while the students at home, they are not being idle and talking on the phone or listening to television. The program has to continue. Today it's Ebola. Another time it's cholera. It can be anything else. But the science is how do we prepare into the future? I mean, who thought this thing was going to come around as we speak? But it's something that's dynamic. It's affecting one West African country as the other, and we don't know where it's going to go. Challenges always present the opportunities. What we are being asked to do now is that learning has to go on regardless. Under no circumstances should we be sitting at home doing nothing. We always compare ourselves to Singapore. What did they do? Most of the progress that happened in that country without a hinterland, for them to have the kind of the standard of living that they have, starts with the school children.
Well, the National Union of Ghana Students says it fully supports decision by government to extend reopening of tertiary institutions by a further 2 weeks over the Ebola scare. The Minister of Education, Professor Nana Pokuajiman, has directed heads of all tertiary institutions across the country to delay the start of the 2014-2015 academic year by 2 weeks. This directive affects all private tertiary institutions as well. Samuel Benfo Dakwa is president of the National Union of Ghana Students, and he's joining me over the telephone. Let's talk about this over the next few minutes. You recall that tertiary education here in the country is not only faced by a scare of Ebola. We have a real impending issue that has to do with our inability to get our lecturers back to the classroom. The conclusion over this has been the fact that this Ebola scare reason is the cover-up for the fact of for government's inability to get the lecturers back into the lecture theatre. Samuel Benfo, you're with the National Union of Ghana Students. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Do you agree with this assertion that this move by government to close down schools for the next 2 weeks is to cover up its failure to reach an agreement with UTAG and POTAG?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and greetings to all your viewers. Yes, we agree that we have two disturbing issues at hand One has to do with the fact that for some time now, lecturers have been on strike. And they did it before reopening of school. And as it was getting closer, would have wished that maybe the issue would have been addressed or resolved. But it's not been so. And then this issue about Ebola to have come into the system. Indeed, as students, we are concerned about this disease that's affecting us. Bear in mind that our hostels sometimes are so choked. We have about 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 students in a room, meaning that you're going to be so close. And when one is affected, automatically the others will be affected. So when we are reopening school, and as a nation and even as an institution, it's not clear the measures that we have put in place to ensure that students' lives are safe, and that there's some kind of screening system in place to ensure that even if somebody is affected, the person can be quarantined, and then they will not spread across among students.
Samuel,
yes.
Are you happy as NUC's president with the total closure of the school for the next 2 weeks, when we've had the scare of Ebola since February? We've had an interministerial committee work on this. Education or tertiary education never featured in any of the encounters with pressmen as to what they would do. Suddenly, we have you closing down schools and grinding tertiary education in the country to a complete halt, and we think it's okay. What happens after the 2 weeks?
Thank you very much. I'm sure I didn't finish. I was not trying to conclude that it's okay. Not at all. Like you said, the ideal situation is that from February, this matter became, we are aware. And the ministry should have by now come out with something to ensure that Ghanaians are safe. But you bear with me, that generally in Ghana, we can't even say that we have a definite test being taken to ensure either being vaccination, being screened or something. The nation as a whole does not even have a policy on it now, let alone to come to our real campus. So I was coming to the point that, yes, we have delayed in ensuring that our colleagues and students really are safe. And indeed, that should be the case that while we are the reopening school, our tertiary institutions are closed. And basically not only about the fact that there's Ebola in the system, but lecturers strike. So I see that this move is just being the ministry taking advantage of what's prevailing. That if students get to campus today, there are no lecturers to teach them. There are no teachers available to teach us. So we're going to stay there without tuition. And therefore, if this Ebola 3 is there, why don't they possibly take advantage to use it as such, so that students will certainly not go to campus? But we will hope that after we are taking advantage of this situation, say they postpone it for 2 weeks, they will take steps to solve these 2 issues. One, the Ebola, they will come out with clear direction as to how the Ebola issue is being addressed on campus. And two, the lecturer strike also being addressed, so that by the time the 2 weeks over, would have attained some kind of convergence about these 2 issues. So I see that it's just an advantage the ministry is taking as a result of the situation to save their faith about the lecture strike.
After 2 weeks, when a clear-cut direction is given as to how to deal with foreign students in our tertiary institutions, and your lecturers are not back to the lecture theatres, what move are we going to see NUC's take?
Okay, thank you very much. Earlier on, you even said that our tertiary institutions have been closed. Not only that, don't forget that CAS who have come out to say that they've closed the SHS indefinitely until they get some clear direction from the state. The same way basic teachers who have threatened to close the schools. So there's a cry that you will bear with me that from May, student leaders have been crying that our educational system is getting some kind of crisis. And therefore, it doesn't just not call for attention from student leaders. But as a nation, everybody must really rise up about it, because the way things are going. And of course, in 2 weeks' time, the chicken come home to roost, whether this issue should be resolved or they're going to give another reason for the postponement of the opening of the institution.
Right, Samuel, thank you very much for your time. Samuel Binfo Dakwa is president of the National Union of Ghana Students. Let's turn attention to some other stories now. Around Ebola, human rights group Amnesty International is urging West African governments to do more to control the Ebola outbreak, which has claimed over 1,000 lives already. Director of the Ghana Office of Amnesty International, Lawrence Amesu, told Joy News desk governments cannot be forgiven should a death rate as far as the Ebola spread is concerned.
Governments of West Africa should have done more than what they are doing now. Honestly, we should even have come up quickly to have a ministerial meeting of all ministers of health across the West Africa region to start thinking of what to do immediately together. And that has to be a collective effort. It appears that each country is taking action as to what to deal with it, but the disease will not know a boundary. So it needs to be done collectively by West African countries, not only West Africa, but I think the whole of Africa. As we all know, this disease was actually identified in Congo and Uganda in 1976. Now it is spread to West Africa, so it does not mean that it will be concentrated in West Africa. It will go to any country in Africa. So it is important for governments to start looking at it collectively rather than individual countries taking action in their own country.
Meanwhile, the Ebola scare has gripped Cameroon following reports that cases of the disease were imported from neighboring Nigeria. Rumors that cases of the deadly Ebola virus had been detected at the government referral hospital in Douala, Cameroon, spread quickly. But Cameroon's Minister of Health has refuted the allegations. Nigerians throng Cameroon on a daily basis for business, vacation, and fear of the militant group Boko Haram. The World Health Organization says at least 10 cases of Ebola have been confirmed in Nigeria. The United Nations reports that unlike previous outbreaks of the disease, which occurred in isolated areas, the West African epidemic erupted in places with more traffic, trade, and freedom of movement, making it easier for the disease to spread. Turn attention to Canada, where that country says it will donate up to 1,000 doses of an experimental Ebola vaccine to help battle the disease outbreak in West Africa. It comes after the World Health Organization said it was ethical to use untested drugs on Ebola patients. However, experts say supplies of both the vaccine and the experimental drug ZMapp are limited, and it could take months to develop more supplies. More than 1,000 people have been killed by the current outbreak. Canada says between 800 and 1,000 doses of the vaccine, which has only been tested on animals, will be donated to the World Health Organization for use in West Africa. Back in Accra, the Deputy Director of Public Health has attributed the recent outbreak of cholera ravaging parts of the capital city to the indiscriminate open defecation at the beaches. Health authorities appear to be losing the fierce battle against cholera in the national capital as more cases are recorded on a daily basis. In fact, over 3,000 cases have already been recorded at various facilities across the region in June alone, claiming at least 40 lives as at Wednesday morning. The General Hospital alone has recorded over 700 cases with 8 deaths. 25 of the cases were reported within 6 hours. The hospital, which has space to handle 13 cholera cases at a time, is now attending to scores of cases on the benches at the OPD. Speaking on the AM show earlier on today, Deputy Public Health Director in Accra, Dr. John Eliza, says the failure of local government to manage filth has compounded the situation.
When the outbreak started, I realized that the reports we were giving you, I always mentioned that we're having it only in 4 districts. Then we have 16 districts in Greater Accra. So as we speak now, almost all the 16 districts are now reporting, and that's why the spread is now wider, and that's why the figures are getting bigger and bigger, because it means people are interacting and then spreading the disease among the others who initially were not part of the districts that were reporting.
What?
Yeah, we record our figures before it starts coming down, because from the word-go, the few who actually had clinical signs of cholera and came reporting might have had contact with a lot of other people who were actually incubating then. So most of them who did not alert us for us to do the prophylaxis who also have a full-blown cholera, which is what we are seeing. After that, if people develop good personal hygiene and things, then we expect that the cases should start coming down. But let me also caution that the mere fact that you have just recovered from cholera does not give you immunity against cholera. If you go back to your old ways, which led you to get infected, you will still get cholera and come back. So rather, some of these figures we are talking about, some are people who have had it earlier on, but went back again and to the same environment and doing the same things. And yeah, that's the shameful aspect. But you see, let me just it's the same environment. You see, cholera is a developmental issue. The environment in which you are makes a big difference. If you observe critically, our typical rural village areas, they don't get cholera. Because go there and look at the environment in our villages, very clean. And you realize that in those places, you hardly see people shitting indiscriminately.
Inflation for the month of July is 15.3%, up 0.3% from that of June. I'll explain when I come back with what's trending in business. Don't go away. In business here on News Today, inflation for July has gone up by 0.3% to 15.3%. The figure for June was 15%. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, utility and transport are the cause of the increase. This is the highest rate of inflation recorded since March 2010. We'll bring you more in subsequent broadcasts. The managing director of the Bank of Africa, Kobianda, has debunked reports that banks are making abnormal profits owing to their high interest rates. He says the profits go into the solid reserves the banks build to cover and absorb market shocks.
The depreciating cedi has shot interest rates up, hitting about 23% per annum. Many argue that the high rates are beneficial to the banks, increasing their profit. But Managing Director of the Bank of Africa, Kobianda, disagrees.
We have to factor that the risk element, that banks have to have reserves to cover and absorb risk. I mean, you give credit to a person, to an organization, you start earning interest from day one. It might be a 2-year exposure. Anywhere along the line, if that goes down, all the profit that you've made and you've paid tax on and all that, you'd have to bring it back. I mean, you have to cover the risk to it. So you have to have a solid reserve to cover you to from market shocks, some of which you do not anticipate, like what is happening to us now. So I will not say banks are making abnormal profit.
He also expressed worry over the high interest rates, which are pushing banks to put resources into treasury bills.
I would say that yes, interest rates are high, which is a problem. It's a problem because most users of money, I mean borrowers, would not be able to borrow at those rates and make a return that will allow them to pay back and earn a good profit, and therefore it heightens the credit risk. The market is worried you lend and maybe it might not come back because the project's viability might not be able to sustain that heavy interest burden. Also, you hear things like because the rates are high, banks are shy from lending and rather do armchair banking and put their resources into treasury bills, which is a risk with high interest rates. I mean, once you have an alternate investment that does not give you that headache of credit risk, I mean, you would be tempted to put your resources there. So it's a market problem that has to be corrected.
Kobianda commented on the Bank of Ghana's move to review the forex measures.
There's so many reasons maybe why it didn't work. One was, I think, we could have been better educated to let us understand really that the policies were not to freeze your money in the banks, but you could have the value of your deposit in CDs at the market rate, and therefore you will not really lose value for the way it was structured. But the market didn't accept it, the market didn't understand, and therefore I think the revisions were necessary.
Well, very good afternoon to you wherever you are. This is Sports on News Today with me, Benedict Owusu. And you know, hundreds of Ghanaian football fans on Wednesday, that's today, embarked on a demonstration to protest the Canadian High Commission's refusal to grant them visas to travel to Canada to watch the ongoing FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup matches. Meanwhile, the Black Princesses beat Finland 2-1 on Tuesday in Moncton to finish on 6 points, but still failed to qualify from the last 8 from Group A, where Korea, DPR and host Canada, both on same points with Ghana, went through with a better goal advantage. So, you know, we're just going to talk about the Black Princesses, and the team yesterday actually won their game but managed to finish third in that group with 6 points. They actually finished their group 6 points. Okay, so I've got my colleague Patrick Akoto in the studios to talk about the Black Princesses. Yesterday the team won 2-1, but they couldn't qualify. After getting 6 points, you think it is very sad for the team, definitely.
It's a shame, but are we too surprised? I'm not too surprised because we've not gone past the group phase. I think it's the first time we've even managed to win 2 games at the world stage. I was expecting them to have done well. At least the fact that they managed to come back against the finish was a very good point for them. But you know, it's become a caricature of a Latin soap opera here in Ghana, where over a period we've not really managed to grind out results when it matters most. It comes on the heels of Ghana's disastrous campaign at the World Cup. So we're expecting the Princesses to do well. Unfortunately, they could not manage it. But hey, we have not even qualified to the group stage before, so it's not really too much of a surprise.
But don't you think at this time we can't blame the Princesses, because going into a tournament and winning 2 matches, it's something laudable?
Yes, you can't really blame them. I think they did their best. I have issues with the tactical disposition of Bashir Hereford. I think he got the tactics wrong against Korea DPR. Our girls lacked stamina. It was obvious the Koreans were running right at them, and that could not help. Look at even the size of their jerseys. It's always a problem. The size of the jersey alone, it serves as a demoralizing factor. Look, it's too huge. Okay. And that you see, air will soak these jerseys. Okay. And when they are running, it is bringing them back.
You made mention of Coach Bashir Hereford.
Yes.
There's this assertion that we shouldn't get any coach who is attached to a Premier League side to handle the Black Princesses or the Black Maidens. It should be a coach who is not attached, because I remember very well Didi Dramani, Kotoko, Black Maidens. We have Basigi, Hazakes, Black Maidens. Now Bashir Hereford, Ashanti Gold, and Israel, the Black Princesses. There's this assertion that we should get, if it's a coach, then that coach shouldn't be attached to anything.
It's a very complex situation. Yes, that should have been the ideal situation, where we have coaches who are assigned to specific national teams. But unfortunately, we've tried that, and they don't simply get paid. You cannot work for 8 months and you don't get paid, and in the name of nationalism, how are you going to survive? So in as much as I agree that coaches must be assigned to specific national teams, unfortunately in our situation, when we tried that, it didn't work. It didn't work because the Football Federation failed to pay them. They did not have enough financial wherewithal, they did not have enough financial wherewithal to pay these coaches. And so the only thing they had to do was to go back to their normal roots. Look, it happened to Evans Adote. I mean, he was the coach of the Maidens, and at the same time was the coach of Mediama Football Club. At a point, it was becoming very difficult to combine the two. So what he decided to do was to concentrate on the national team. Now, when the national team, when we went to the last World Cup and we came back, as we speak, is unemployed because now Mediama have gone in for a new coach. So the difficulty with that, Benedict, is that in as much as that should have been the ideal situation, when they get the national team job, they simply don't get paid. And when they don't get paid, that is a recipe for disaster. That is a recipe for corruption.
Finally, what do you make of the Ghana supporters today, their demonstration against the Canadian High Commission?
It's unfortunate what the Canadian High Commission is doing, but this demonstration, as far as I'm concerned, will lead to nothing. Already, the team is out. They are not going to grant them visas. I mean, that has been the policy of the Canadian embassy. It's always difficult getting Canadian visas. And I don't know, the timing of this particular demonstration is a source of worry to me. Why do you demonstrate today when we already out of the competition? So right now we are demonstrating today. So they are supposed to give you the visas to go and do what? But it comes on the heels of the over 100 or so supporters who went to Brazil and seek asylum, claiming that there's internal warfare between Catholics and, you know. But look, Benedict, the truth of the matter is that this demonstration, the timing was wrong, and it shouldn't have happened at all in the first place. Because
Thank you very much.
They won't go to Canada. We are out.
Thank you very much, Patrick Akutu, a sports journalist, sports writer. Thanks so much.